guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Haley. Today is going to be a little bit different of a video. Usually I do like lifestyle videos, like morning routines and stuff like that. But today I'm going to be sharing with you on how I got diagnosed with my chronic illnesses. So if you didn't know or you haven't been following me for very long, I recently told you guys that I got diagnosed with POTS syndrome and GERD. So POTS stands for postural orthostatic tachycardic syndrome. And it means like if you're sitting up, laying down, or standing up, when you change positions, your heart rate either drops or goes up by 30 beats. And that's how you get diagnosed. So I'm just going to be sharing my story with you guys on the journey I have come this far. And yeah, so let's get right into the video. So let's get started on the story on how I got diagnosed. So if you see me looking down, I'm just looking at the notes I made for the video. So when I was very little, I remember going to the doctor's office and we were just there for like a normal checkup, and I think we were there to get flu shots also, and I started shaking uncontrollably, and my mom just thought I was cold, so she like held me. This was when I was really little, and so she held me and she brought me back when the doctor called us, and she was like, she's been shaking for like a couple of minutes now and she's not cold. They checked my fever, didn't have a fever, and then they did some more tests, and it turns out I started having epilepsy. So yeah, when I was really little, I started having seizures. And then fast forward to 6th grade. When I was in 6th grade, I had started having these really bad stomach aches, and they just would not go away. They would last for hours and hours and hours. We went to my general pediatrician, and they referred us to a digestive health doctor. The lady, she was like feeling my stomach, you know, whatever, and she was a little concerned when I was starting to get tender in my stomach, and so she wanted to do a scope. If you didn't know what a scope is, an endoscopy, they take a tube with a camera down your throat just to like look everything, and turns out I started having ulcers in my stomach, and so that's where all that pain was coming from. So that happened in 6th grade, and then when I got to 8th grade, this is when I started getting really sick and things started going very, very downhill. So one morning I woke up and had a very bad headache. I was like, well, I have headaches all the time. Maybe it's just from a seizure that I had the other day, you know, whatever. Because when I started having seizures, I would, like, right after the seizure would end, I would get these migraines very, very bad. I would have to sometimes even go home because they got so bad. But one morning I woke up, had a headache, felt very weird, and when I stood up from bed, I immediately blacked out, hit the ground, I fainted, and I tried to get back up, but I was still really lightheaded, and I was like, okay, well, I gotta get ready. So I just kind of like pushed it out of my mind. I was like, okay, well, I gotta do this. And when I got to the bathroom to, you know, wash my face and get freshened up, I passed out again. I was like, whatever, it's nothing. Even though this was the second time I passed out in like 5 minutes. So I got up, got dressed, and when I stood up from getting dressed, what do you know, I hit the ground again, I fainted. And by this point I was like, okay, something's not right. I called my sister into the room and I was like, Lexi, can you please go get mom? Like, I've passed out 3 times. And she was like, what? You've passed out? I was like, yeah. And my mom like held me and like carried me to the kitchen, I think, and they gave me like orange juice and a cookie, because if you didn't know, when you get your blood taken, you drink orange juice and you eat a cookie, because I think it's like if your iron is low. So they were trying to like, I don't know. And I stood up to see if I could walk, and I passed out again. And so my mom was like, okay, no, this ain't working. And so they took me to the emergency room, and they did some tests. Everything looked normal. They were like, you're just probably dehydrated. They pushed it off. gave me some Pedialyte and sent me home. And this actually went on for a few weeks. I was passing out every time I stood up, got lightheaded. It just wasn't stopping. So I went to the hospital, I think 2 times in those 3 months that I was passing out. And every time they were like, no, she's fine, but over the couple months started getting worse. I was shaking when I would pass out, like, it wasn't really like a seizure, but it was like more of a tremor, like a half seizure. I don't really know what those are, like a partial seizure, that's it, partial seizure. And, okay, I was like, okay, well, are these seizures? Am I passing out? Is it my iron? Is it potassium? I didn't know what was going on. They did an EKG and I think an EEG, and those came back normal. They didn't really know what was wrong with me. They kept pushing it off. They were like, we don't know what's triggering you to pass out, because everything looked normal. So they sent me to my neurologist that had been seeing me for my epilepsy for a long time. So they sent me back there and they're like, hey, she's been passing out. We don't know what's wrong with her. Figure it out. When I got there, they checked my blood pressure and they noticed something very weird. So when I would just be sitting there, my blood pressure would be like 120/40. And they weren't really worried about that top number, but the bottom number they were very worried about, because that bottom number was extremely low. And so they were like, okay, let's try something. So they did a poor man's tilt table test. And I don't really know if that's like the medical term for it, but a tilt table test is where you lay down, they check your blood pressure and your heart rate, then you sit up, they check your blood pressure, your heart rate, you stand up, they check your blood pressure and your heart rate, and they wait 5 or 10 minutes, and then they check your blood pressure again. And hold on, let me actually get the actual definition up. I think it's like 20 or 30 if it drops or it moves 20 to 30 beats, then you're diagnosed with POTS. But when I stood up and I changed all those positions from like sitting to standing to laying down, my heart rate and blood pressure was just all over the place. And it was low, and then when I sat up it went high, and then went back to low, and then when I stood up it went very, very low, and then it went high. And they were like, do you feel lightheaded when you stand up? I was like, yeah, but like, I was like, yeah, it's whatever, I feel lightheaded, but it's normal now because I've been passing out for weeks and weeks and weeks. And they said, okay, and they would come back in a few minutes. So they left the room. We were like, okay, well, I don't know what that was. And they came back and they were like, do you eat salt? Do you drink electrolytes and stuff like that? I was like, yeah, I do. And they were like, okay, well, they were very quiet, and they were like, Haley, you have POTS syndrome. And I was like, all right, what's that? And they're like, it's postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And I was like, all right, do you want to explain that to me in like a better sense? And they were like, so when you stood up or sat up, your blood pressure dropped, and that is what's making you pass out. So when your blood pressure got below 40, you just kind of like blacked out and hit the ground, and that's what's been causing you to pass out. And I was like, oh, that's nice. After this, they put me on some medication to see if it would help, but it didn't really help. I was still passing out and getting extremely lightheaded and had headaches. And a lot of the teachers didn't really understand my condition and what was going on, because at that time, POTS was still pretty rare. I know more people are starting to get diagnosed with it, which it's not great, but it's been more researched, I guess you could say. And I remember it was really hard for me in 8th grade because a lot of these teachers, didn't know what was going on. And they thought I was faking it. They're like, no, this isn't real. She can't just be passing out from standing up. And I was in PE, and the nurse gives me these medical crosses to put on my school badge. So if anything were to happen and I need to go to the nurse immediately, that I just show my teacher that and be like, hey, I gotta go. And they let me go. Well, my PE teacher, I felt very lightheaded, and that day I was sitting out from doing the exercises because I could not stand up. And when you have POTS, when you stand up for a long time, you start to get like really antsy, and it's because of your blood pressure and your heart rate dropping or going up. And I just couldn't stand up that day because I knew I was gonna pass out if I did. So I sat in the bleachers and I started shaking. And so my arms started shaking, and then my legs started shaking. And I was like, all right, well, I don't want this to get any worse. And so I showed my PE teacher that little medical badge, and he goes, no, you're not going, you're fine. I went back up to the bleachers. I told my friends in the class what he said, and they were like, he can't do that. You have to go to the nurse. You're like having a tremor or a seizure, Haley. Like, this isn't good. They went down there and they talked to this teacher, and I don't know what they said to him, but he was like, come here. And he was like, go to the nurse. And I was like, thank you. And I remember after that, the teachers, like, I guess had got together and was like talking about me, and they're like, nah, she's faking it. And I remember sometimes like the teachers would be even worse with the bullying than the kids were, because, you know, the kids, they were just like, get away from me, I don't want your disease or your, I was like, okay, well, it's not contagious, you're not gonna get it. And then I can't even tell you how many times I've heard, you're not sick, you don't look sick, you weren't sick yesterday. But that's the thing with a chronic illness, you know, it just comes out of nowhere. So I think the reason why they didn't get it is because they weren't educated on what POTS actually was. And I remember the last day of school, my math teacher, he was like telling kids how great they were, and then he got to me and he was like, Haley, guys in the class, listen, Haley's a liar. She doesn't even have this illness. She's been faking it this whole time. Never trust Haley. And I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was like, are you serious? And I was like, what? Like, how could you have no empathy and like just say that when clearly I am suffering from this? And I think he just didn't understand what was going on. I actually felt kind of bad for him, to be honest, more than I felt bad for myself. And at that time, I had a couple more scopes done to my stomach because I was still having pain in my stomach. And of spring of 2018, I had another endoscopy done, and because I was still in pain and everything. And when I woke up, the doctor had apparently told my mom that I was diagnosed with GERD. If you don't know what GERD is, hold on, let me look it up so I can get the actual definition for you guys. GERD is called gastroesophageal reflux disease. I don't know if I said that right, but we're just gonna go with it. It's a digestive disorder that affects the ring muscles around your esophagus and your stomach. It's like makes all the acid in your stomach come up to your esophagus, and that's where a lot of the pain comes from. And he also told me that I had more ulcers than ever before, and I had a hernia in my esophagus that was probably making a lot of things bad. I just had a hiccup with acid reflux, so yeah. And the acid goes up to my food pipe, and that's what's causing my pain. And I was like, oh great, another chronic illness, how lovely. So I was like, wow, I'm basically diagnosed with 2 chronic illnesses. That's crazy for somebody at my age, but, you know, comes out of the blue like that. And then my friends would have to carry my stuff to class because I was so weak, and I was passing out all the time. Like, I had to be escorted around to make sure I didn't pass out in the hallway and hit my head on the ground because I was so incredibly sick at the time. And I had another scope in 2019 of October. I'm actually going to link that video so you guys can see that video. And my stomach acid was so incredibly bad at the time that after the scope, they told me that I actually had nerve damage to my stomach because of how much ulcers and everything was going on in my stomach, that it caused nerve damage. And they were like, well, you're not actually in pain, you're not actually feeling this pain, it's the nerves that are thinking to tell your brain that you're in pain, like the pain receptors are messed up. And I was like, what? Like, I'm not actually feeling this pain, like clearly I'm hurting. And at that time I realized, you know, I'm not gonna get better. You know, I hope that I get better, but I was like, I'm not gonna be better for a really long time. And that was a little sad to think about. Like, I'm gonna have to deal with this for many, many years. And I don't know if there's gonna be a cure, because right now there's treatments to make it better, but it's never gonna get better. Like, it'll get better and controlled, but I'm still gonna have it with me the whole, like, whenever I'm older. And I was still passing out, and when I have my POTS episodes, I shake, I have migraines, and I also sometimes have heart palpitations. And by this time, my neurologist was wanting to check me again to make sure everything was okay with my medication, because I was still passing out. And I had told him, I was like, hey man, you know, when I pass out, I've been getting these extreme heart palpitations where it like takes my breath for a little bit. And he was like, okay, let me listen to your heart. So he listened to my heart, and he heard something. He heard a murmur. And so he was like, okay, I need to refer you to a cardiologist. A few weeks later, went to the cardiologist. He heard the murmur too, and he did an ultrasound on my heart, and he found a leak in my heart. So a piece of my mitral valve, I'm pretty sure, was leaking, and it was causing those heart palpitations. And because of the POTS, you know, my heart was already working itself and so hard to try and get blood up to my brain, so my blood pressure kind of like levels out, that I started having a leak in my heart. I was like, wow. And he goes, we're gonna have to check you every year to make sure it's not getting worse. And he said eventually we might have to do I think a mitral valve replacement in the coming years if it gets worse. I was like, cool. And this year, because of COVID, I actually got a lot worse. Like, these palpitations I've been having got worse. I've been having a lot of passing out episodes. I actually recently passed out in my kitchen. Thank God I didn't hit my head, but yeah, I've been passing out a lot. I've been having stomach issues, and because of COVID, I can't see any of my doctors because it's too dangerous, and they don't want me to get sick, because if I were to get sick, I'd probably end up in the hospital because of these chronic illnesses, and I'm not trying to get COVID, so I haven't been going anywhere. And I'm actually having another surgery soon on my stomach, hopefully. They wanted to check me and my heart, because I hadn't checked it since last year because I haven't been able to go into any doctors. So they're gonna check my heart again. That's actually, when I'm filming this video, it's on Friday, so tomorrow. They're actually gonna check my heart, and they're gonna... Hey guys, I know you probably can't see me that well right now, but I'm editing the video, and I noticed that I left something out. So an update from when they checked my heart. My heart is actually, the leak is closing up, which is really good. It's still a leak though, but it's much better. And right now I have these little heart monitors on. See that? Yeah, heart monitor. And I have to wear it for a month, which is fine. And I am approved for surgery, so that video will be coming up, so be on the lookout for that. Try to approve me for surgery, and then on March 25th I will have another endoscopy, which I'm probably going to film it for you guys. Sorry, I get brain fog sometimes because of POTS. Anyway, I remember last time I was coming off of anesthesia pretty hard. I was really goofy, but I'm gonna answer some questions that you guys asked. So, what affects your POTS? So, a lot of things actually affect it. It could be the weather, when it's really hot outside. When it's in the summer, a lot of times, my POTS will get extremely, extremely bad in the summer, because my heart is already working so incredibly hard to get blood up to my brain, and when it's hot, I lose all my salt, I lose all my electrolytes because, you know, you're hot, you're sweating, and so I actually have to put a lot of salt. Sometimes when I'm having POTS episodes, I'll pour salt on my hand and just look, it sounds so disgusting, but when you're in need of salt, you understand. And sometimes my mood will affect my POTS. So if I'm like sad or something, I don't even know why it does that, but if I'm sad, excited, or I think it's when I'm excited, like my heart rate goes up, and that's what can sometimes cause me to have a POTS episode. It's very, very weird, I know, but it just what happens. Another question is, have you ever thought about getting a service dog? Yes, I actually have thought about getting a service dog, but they are just so expensive. Service dogs can range, I think, between between $10,000 and $30,000, I am pretty sure. And girl, I ain't got that money. So I know you can apply for disability, and I think they can help you there, but as for right now, no, I'm not gonna get a service dog. Have you tried different diets for your POTS or your GERD? Yes, I actually have tried some diets where, you know, I try and cut carbs out and all this other stuff, but it actually doesn't help me, and people have referred keto, but I cannot do keto because of the conditions, because, you know, I'll have to eat salt, but salt is bad for my GERD, and so it's just like kind of like contradicts itself. And a lot of people who have POTS actually have a lot of digestive issues, which is very weird, to be honest. But anyway, how does it affect your life? So I have had to quit many things to do it, physically and mentally. It does take a toll on you. I've had to quit a lot of things I used to do. You know, before I had POTS, I actually did soccer, I did ballet, I danced, let's see. I was a very active person, and it's very weird because I've heard so many stories of people being so incredibly active. They were like triathlons, and all of a sudden they just got POTS, and it's almost like it just comes overnight, and you just can't do anything about it. A lot of times I'm bedridden, like, because my heart will not stay stable for that day, and every time I would stand up, I just pass out, and I can't get my heart rate up. One day it got between 39 and 45, and that's what it was, like the whole day. I couldn't get it up no matter how hard I tried. Like, I was eating salt, I was doing electrolytes, I tried my best, but I just could not get out of bed. And I recently had to quit my job for a social media influencer because I was very sick, and I couldn't do it anymore, and I loved it, but because of my condition, it was getting worse, and they thought it would be best for me and them if I took a step back for a little bit and just focused on my health. That's actually one of the reasons why I was let go. So, if you want me to do a day in the life of somebody with POTS, just let me know, and I will certainly do that for you guys. But I really hope you enjoyed this video of me telling you a story about how I got diagnosed, and if you do have POTS or GERD or chronic illness, hopefully this helped you. If you're new and you have POTS, hopefully this brought a little bit of light and knowledge, so you'll be a little more prepared. If you want me to do a video on what helps me and tips on how I have POTS and GERD, I will definitely do that for you guys. But that's the video for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye!